The FBI became involved in a long-standing conspiracy theory among ufologists in the 1980s. Majestic 12 has many descriptions, depending on which conspiracy theorist is presenting his or her version, but it contains crashed UFOs, alien bodies, and varying versions of the US government's cover-up of the event. The 12 refers to a special committee allegedly established by President Truman in 1947 to deal secretly with all matters regarding UFOs. Among the more well-known names on the 12-man committee were James Forrestal, then Secretary of Defense, and Hoyt Vandenberg, for whom Vandenberg Air Force Base was named. In the 1980s, 2 FBI offices were presented with documents, marked with appropriate classifications, describing the crash of a UFO and the existence of the committee. The document is identified as a briefing for then-President-elect Eisenhower, dated November 16, 1952. The 2 FBI offices which received the documents both indicated questions as to their authenticity, but when Air Force Intelligence provided some corroborating information, they forwarded them to FBI headquarters for investigation. The FBI determined the document to be an elaborate hoax, one of several regarding the alleged 1947 crash of an alien vehicle, which led to the recovery of alien bodies. The entire document can be read online here, though with some difficulty as the word bogus appears across each page. Although the Majestic 12 file is in fact an explained event covering a fictional crash, the FBI vault carries the file in its Unexplained Phenomenon section, along with its several other files regarding UFOs and little green men. The Hoddle memo may have been over the so-called Roswell incident. Since 1947, when an object crashed to Earth in New Mexico near Roswell, ufologists have created various stories covering crashed UFOs and alien bodies in the possession of the USAF. In March 1950, Special Agent in Charge, SAC, Guy Hoddle sent a memo to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. According to Hoddle, an informant, described as an Air Force investigator, told an FBI agent that 3 UFOs had been recovered by the USAF. Each of the 3 contained 3 crew members, dressed in metallic cloth of a very fine texture. The bodies were further described as being of human shape but only 3 feet tall. The ships from which they were removed were described as circular in shape with raised centers, approximately 50 feet in diameter. It was these bodies later described as being held by the Air Force at Wright-Patterson, along with the wreckage of their ships. The memorandum became famous among ufologists as proof of the existence of alien spacecraft visiting Earth, and it remains popular among ufologists and conspiracy theorists. Hoddle explained the crash of the 3 ships as being caused by powerful radar installations operated by the Air Force, according to the informant. The radio waves emitted by the installations had an adverse effect on the aliens' control systems, causing all 3 to crash. The agent reporting the information to Hoddle had undertaken no further investigation into the matter, and his name, as well as that of his informant, is redacted from the memorandum. Silas Newton was a confidence man who may have been the informant in the Hoddle memo. As early on as September 1938, the FBI had information on Silas Newton. Newton had an extensive arrest record at that time, in multiple states, which included stock fraud, wire fraud, grand larceny, bail jumping, and other crimes. Yet Newton portrayed himself as a wealthy oil man and investor. By 1950, Newton was a self-described expert on the popular subject of UFOs and was cited as a source in one of the early books on the subject, Behind the Flying Saucers, by Frank Scully. He claimed multiple personal UFO sightings, including the crashed UFOs held by the government. Newton's claimed knowledge of UFOs and the aliens which flew in them led him to numerous speaking engagements, but could not surpass his taste for out-and-out swindling. Along with a partner, Leonard Gebauer, known as Dr. G, but in reality an electronics salesman, he announced the development of a mineral-seeking device based on alien technology. Denver industrialist Herman Flater agreed to invest in their device, called the Doodlebug, believing the minerals it found would easily recoup his investment of $50,000. Flater thought his investment sound since he received 1/3 of the company which would produce Doodlebugs for an estimated $800,000 each. Other investors were taken in as well. Some Doodlebugs were actually produced, using cheaply obtained Army surplus radio parts. They did not detect much of anything, and the actual cost was less than $4. As it became evident that Newton's Doodlebug was a scam, he and his partner Drive G simply made off with the money. Some experts believe Newton may have been the informant who told the unnamed FBI agent of the 3 downed flying saucers in New Mexico, though that may have been mere speculation. Both Newton and Gebauer were convicted of fraud in 1953. Newton's fraud did not end with UFOs and doodlebugs. Throughout his tenure as a self-appointed expert on UFOs and aliens, Newton carried with him a piece of metal. He claimed it to be indestructible. He also claimed it to be from one of the crashed UFOs he had seen. Eventually, it was tested by the authorities and found to be aluminum. By then, Newton had begun stepping away from his role as an authority on UFOs and alien bodies. He changed his stories, claiming he had not actually seen the UFOs but was repeating the descriptions told to him by people who had. He made the same claim regarding the alien bodies he previously claimed to have seen in a secret government facility. Though he downplayed his expertise on UFOs as they were debunked by science, he once claimed UFOs flew at twice the speed of light. He continued to be cited by ufologists. His tales were repeated and embellished within the UFO community. In 1969 he appeared again, in yet another fraudulent scheme. This one used decidedly dated technology, repeating a scam which occurred frequently throughout history. He engaged in a mind-salting scheme for the purpose of defrauding investors. Indicted for the crime in 1969, he entered a guilty plea. The mind-salting scheme took place while Newton was under charges of fraud related to oil wells in California. The FBI's files in the unexplained phenomenon category describe Newton's long history of operating as a confidence man and grifter. The true unexplained phenomenon regarding Newton is probably the fact that he got away with it for so long a time, in several industries, without evidently ever serving any significant time in jail. Newton died in 1972, but many of the UFO myths he perpetrated continue today. Thanks for listening.